Hello my cake friends, this is Kara Jane with Ice Cream for Buttercream, and today we're going to talk about how to mix cake batter. And this is an actual real-time mixing video. So why am I showing this mixing in real time? Well, I've been asked by multiple people to actually show a video of how long I actually mix my cake batter and what does it look like during the different stages. So I thought this would be really helpful. It is a little bit longer video than normal, and that is because I'm going to show you in real time what I do to mix my cake batter. So I just want to make something clear real quick. We are talking about scratch cakes here, not cake mix cakes. And there's nothing wrong with making mix cakes. We're just going to go through mixing up the batter for scratch cakes because they are a little different. If you're going to use a cake mix cake, it is much easier to deal with. You can beat it for a much longer time and it'll turn out great. But scratch cakes are a little bit more finicky, so I want to go through that method with you here. Okay, real quick, let's talk about what kind of mixer. And basically, I just want to tell you that you can use either kind. I mean, you can use a stand mixer. If you don't have a stand mixer, don't freak out about it. You can use a handheld mixer. That's perfectly fine. If you do have a stand mixer, I would encourage you to get one of those beater attachments instead of using the whisk. I just find that it whips up, or actually beats the batter better than a whip attachment, or the whisk attachment. The whisk attachment seems to just kind of beat it a little bit too hard, and I really just like the flat beater attachment, especially the Flex Edge beater attachment. It has this little rubber edge on it that kind of scrapes the bowl for you, so it's really helpful. Okay, so we're also going to go through two different mixing methods in real time. We're going to go through the creaming method and the reverse creaming method. Now, the creaming method is probably what you're more familiar with, and this is what most cakes I think are using, or in general most cakes are using. They are going to whip up the sugar and the butter, and they're going to whip it up for a couple of minutes to get it really light and fluffy, and that's going to help with the rise of your cake and the texture of your cake. And then for the reverse creaming method, it's a little bit different, but you're actually adding all of the dry ingredients together first, and then you're going to add the butter to the dry ingredients. So you're not whipping the butter and the sugar together, you are adding the butter into the dry flour ingredients. It's going to coat the flour, and that way essentially you can end up adding more liquids and sugar to your cake batter. And you get a really soft texture, and it is not quite as easy to overbeat your batter when you use the reverse creaming method. And frankly, I find that method a lot easier to use than the creaming method, but either way, you're going to get a good cake. So I just wanted to show you both methods in case you have a recipe with either one of these, then you'll know how long to mix up your cake batter. So for the creaming method in real time, we're going to go through my chocolate butter cake recipe, and for the reverse creaming method, we're going to go through my vanilla bean cake recipe. And I will put the links to both of these recipes in the description below, or in the blog post as well, so you can check that out if you want to know the exact measurements and everything. All the details about each recipe will be there. Okay, there's a couple of things that I want to note first before we get started. You want to make sure that your pans are well prepared first. So however the recipe tells you to prepare them, you want to do that. If it is greasing the pans and flouring them, you want to make sure you do that. And you want to also make sure that your oven is preheated. This really is important. When I was a little kid and I was baking cakes, I thought, no, I'm in a hurry. I'm just going to turn the oven on, put the cake. How important could this be, right? So it actually is, because it's going to extend your baking time if you don't do that, and the cake's not going to rise properly because the oven's not hot enough when you first put the cake in. So just trust me, it's important. Preheat your oven. Okay, so you also want to make sure that your ingredients are at the proper temperature. So, people talk about the ingredients. It's best to have them all close to room temp, or at least all the ingredients at the same temperature. That is important, but it's more important to just do what the recipe says. So if the recipe says it's really important that you do that, make sure you do that. Most of my recipes, sometimes the eggs are a little cold, sometimes the milk's a little cold. I don't find that a huge deal. But what's really important in most of mine is that the butter be room temperature. And you don't want it warm and too mushy, but you do want it, especially for the reverse creaming method, you do want that butter to be slightly colder than room temperature. So that's really important about the butter. So just make sure you're doing what the recipe instructions tell you to do. All right, let's get started. So the first one, remember, we're doing the chocolate cake, and this one is the regular creaming method. So first we're going to add all of the dry ingredients like the flour, baking powder, baking soda, cocoa powder, everything to the bowl first, because this one actually takes 3 bowls. So just whisk your dry ingredients together and then set that bowl to the side. So now we're going to add the liquid ingredients. I'm just adding a little bit of oil here. And something else to note is that this cake recipe of mine is sort of an adjusted regular creaming method cake. And some other recipes ask you to add in the eggs one at a time to the sugar and butter mixture. And this one I'm actually adding all of the liquid ingredients in one bowl, and then we're adding them in sections. So there's no right or wrong method to doing that. Just do whatever the instructions in the recipe tell you to do. Okay, so we're just going to whisk up the wet ingredients or the liquid ingredients and make sure they're really mixed well. When I first started watching this and editing this video, because I'm doing the narrations now, obviously, but when I was editing to put the video clips together, I thought, man, it looks like I'm working in slow motion, but I guess real life kind of is a little slow like that. Okay, now I am going ahead and adding the butter and the sugar, and I'm using my flat beater attachment. And this chocolate cake is a little bit different than a regular creaming method cake because I'm using half brown sugar and half of the regular granulated sugar. But it's the same concept here. Okay, and I've even got a timer here, so hopefully this will help everyone see exactly how long I'm mixing. And I start out at a lower temperature just to try to get everything, or not temperature, speed, just to try to get everything mixed together and incorporated, and then I just kind of gradually go up. And I'm going to set this for the creaming method. When I'm creaming the butter and the sugar together, I'm going to set the speed at about medium high. And sometimes I'll go a little bit higher. And you want to do this for a couple of minutes because you really want your sugar and your butter to get really light and fluffy and mix really well. You want to incorporate as much air in as you can. Bear with me, we're almost there. Now, when you're using granulated sugar as opposed to brown sugar, it will whip up lighter, or in my experience, it does. So this won't. So if you're using a different recipe, I guess is what I'm trying to say, that's just using all white sugar instead of the brown sugar, your butter sugar mixture will probably look a little bit lighter and fluffier. So this is one of the great things about a stand mixer. You can just set it and kind of leave it to go and do some other things, eat a snack, I don't know. But you can just kind of let it do its thing. But that's okay. If you don't have a stand mixer, you can still make a great cake with a hand mixer. Okay. It's all fluffed up and as much air is incorporated as I could get. And so we're going to add in our dry ingredients, and I'm just adding in 1/3 of the dry ingredients, and I'm going to mix those together. And it's still going to be a little bit crumbly because we haven't added really any liquid ingredients at this point. And so now I'm just going to add in 1/2 or about half of the liquid ingredients, maybe a little bit less than half. If you add too much liquid at one point, it could break the emulsification. It won't mix well together, and it can also just splash out everywhere at you. So I'm just starting low at first so it doesn't splash everywhere, and then just going up to medium, and just, as you can see, just until it's just mixed in together. And then I'm going to add another third of the flour mixture. And we're going to mix it on low at first, change to about medium, and just until everything is just incorporated. You can see on the timer how long. All right, then we're going to add in the last half of the liquid mixture. And turn it on low just to start so you don't splash out any of the liquid mixture at you. And then turn it up to medium and just let it mix just until everything is incorporated. So that was only about 19 seconds. And then what we're going to do is just add in the last third of the dry mixture. And do the same thing. We're going to start on low just to get it mixed in a little bit, and then switch the speed to medium and mix it just until everything's incorporated. When you overmix a cake, you get a really dense texture, you get a cake that doesn't rise, you get all kinds of things happening with your cake. It just doesn't turn out right. So it's really important not to keep on mixing. So we're just scraping down the sides of the bowl, and you want to get the very bottom middle. Sometimes the mixer attachment doesn't get down there in the middle of the bowl. And then I'm just going to turn it on and just make sure all that is mixed in really well, just for a few seconds. And the last part of this chocolate cake recipe is a cup of hot coffee or a cup of hot water, so I'm adding that in at the very last. That's not normal for general cakes, but it is for this chocolate cake. And so of course you have to start on low because that coffee is just going to slosh out everywhere if you start it on medium, and then I just slowly turn it up until it looks like everything is well incorporated. And then again, I'm going to scrape the sides of the bowl and down at the bottom of the bowl to make sure I got everything incorporated. I wonder how many times I can say incorporated in this video. Maybe we should go back and count. Okay, I'm just going to mix just for a few more seconds. This is where people mostly mess up, and they just mix for a couple of minutes. No, 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 you don't want to do that. That's really it. You just mix for a couple of more seconds, just until everything is mixed together, and then you're ready to pour it into your pan or your pans and bake it. And remember, you can get the instruction for this specific cake on the blog post or in the description below. Okay, so that was the regular creaming method, and this is the reverse creaming method. And I am adding all of my dry ingredients directly into my mixing bowl, and that's the flour and the sugar and the baking powder and the salt. We're going to add a beater attachment, and this is the flex edge beater that I was talking about earlier. We're just going to mix that all together. Just make sure it's all stirred up. Keep it on low at this point, or it's just going to just sling powder out everywhere. Okay, in another bowl we're going to add all of our liquid mixture, and this is sour cream I'm adding right now, and milk. Some oil and some vanilla bean paste, because vanilla bean paste makes life taste so good. All right, just whisk it all up really well. And sour cream takes forever to really mix in because it wants to clump up on you. So just keep going. It'll eventually get there. I know it seems like it's taking forever, but y'all wanted real time, so we're doing real time here. Okay, so now we're not adding the liquid just yet. We're going to slowly add in chunks of butter. So this recipe takes about a cup of butter, and it's almost to room temperature, and we're slowly adding it in with the mixer on. If you do not have a stand mixer, that's not a big deal. You'll just add a little bit of butter in, use your hand mixer to mix that up, add in a little bit more butter. You can still do it. And the mixer's on low at this point. Low or low medium, and we're just going to slowly add it in so it doesn't all clump up together in one big clump. All right, stay with me here. We're almost there. Gotta have a little patience. Okay, so once you get all the butter mixed in, you just want to turn up the speed and just keep mixing until you get a sand-like texture. Sometimes it doesn't take too long. Now my butter was a little bit warm this time, so it's not as sand-like as I normally try to get it, but you just want it to be kind of a sandy, gritty texture. And then you're going to add in half of the liquid mixture and just mix it just until it's combined. So we're not talking minutes here, literally I think that was 12 seconds. We're going to add in the last half of the liquid mixture. And start your mixer on low so it doesn't splash all the ingredients out at you, and then you can turn it up to medium and mix it just until it's combined. Now every recipe is different, so you do want to follow that particular recipe's instructions. So I just want to make sure that you realize that. So although these are essentially the creaming method and the reverse creaming method, they're all kind of adjusted. So each recipe will kind of do it in their own way is what I'm trying to say. So I scrape the sides of the bowl and the bottom of the bowl and go ahead and mix it again for a few more seconds just to make sure everything's incorporated well. And I think that was about 10 seconds. And then you pour it in your pan and bake it, and you have a lovely cake. Make sure you cool the cake on racks. Okay guys, I hope that was really helpful and it showed you exactly how long I like to mix my cake batter. So when I say don't over mix, I just mean just mix it until it's incorporated. Basically you want to follow the instructions on the recipe, but you want to be careful not to over mix it. I think everybody's worried about getting every little lump out in their cake batter, and if it's a scratch cake you really don't need to do that. Obviously you don't want huge lumps in it, but you don't have to get everything completely perfectly smooth. And beating until you get everything smooth is probably going to ruin your cake texture. So just be careful of that. Just remember that the recipe for the vanilla bean cake and the chocolate butter cake, and also tips for getting your cakes to release from their pans, I put links in the description below. And if you're reading or if you're watching this video from the blog post, I have also put those links in the blog post. Alright my friends, that's it for this video. I hope you liked it. I hope it was really helpful for you. And if you have any more questions, just shoot me a comment below and I will be happy to answer them. See you next time.